Hey guys, my name is Matsumiyo, and welcome to our episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for the is, what do you think if Ubisoft added skins for drones? I'm actually a little surprised that this isn't something that Ubisoft has already done for Rainbow Six Siege, considering all the other ways that they've monetized this game. I truly do think that people would like to have drone customization. Now, I realize not everyone's going to be on board with this idea, because not everyone is going to want to have a bright red or bright pink camo on their drone. This is one of the most important gadgets you can have on offense. It's the way that you gather information, and if your drone gets taken out because you have a really bright camo on it, you're probably putting yourself at a disadvantage. But I think a lot of people would just love to have these options. A wide array of different colors, different color patterns, racing stripes if they want to go down that path. I realize not everyone's going to like that. But also, they could go to the extreme where they actually visually change the way that the drone looks, kind of like what they did with Twitch's gadget for her Elite skin. Now, my one big concern with all of this, though, is that even though some people might really like this idea, is that Ubisoft would need to walk a very fine line on what is going to give people an advantage and what is just more customization. Like I said, this is one of the most important gadgets in the game, and people want it to be stealthy. Well, if you have really bright camos, yeah, that's going to put you at a disadvantage, but what if they started adding in drone camos that actually give you a bit more stealth on certain maps? This is one problem that we had with the Valkyrie Elite skin with her gadget. I'm sure you guys remember, because it wasn't that long ago, but when her Elite skin first came out, there was a lot of commotion that people were complaining that it was pay to win because her cameras blended into the environment more than the normal cameras. And so thankfully, Ubisoft went on in, they made the change that was necessary, and now it doesn't feel pay to win. This is honestly the same problem that we have with Twitch's Elite skin. Her drone is already super stealthy, and the Elite skin takes it to a completely different level. Even when I'm playing as Twitch, and I know, or I should know exactly where my drone is, it blends in the environment so well that even I, as the player, as Twitch, has a hard time identifying its location. Just imagine being on the defensive team and that thing shocking you every once in a while and then standing still. It's incredibly obnoxious. And so I realize a lot of people probably like the idea of having drone customization. My one big concern is that it might go down the path of being pay to win, or just something that is required if you want to be more competitive in this game. You have to spend the renown, or you have to buy some rainbow credits to get that particular camo for a certain map so that you can have that edge on the competition. And I know that's probably not something that a lot of people want to see in Rainbow Six Siege. The next question comes from Darren, and it is, what are your thoughts on console players using mouse and keyboards in Siege? It ruins games more than any bug or hit reg. Do they need their own server, or should console sensitivity be limited to normal thumb reaction? It's basically cheating. I was very surprised at how many times I got this question this week, and it makes me feel like it's becoming a pretty big issue on console. Now, I don't have any personal experience with this, so you guys are going to have to let me know down below in the comments, but from the sounds of it, at higher tiers in their platinum and diamond category, a lot of people are using mouse and keyboard to compete. And so if you were someone who bought Rainbow Six Siege on console, assuming that it was going to be a level playing field where everyone was using a controller, sure, some people might have different variations of said controller. I know there is the Xbox One Elite, which I think is technically better than the normal one. It gives you a couple more options, but at least at the end of the day, it still is a controller. It's a vast difference between that and someone who has the precision of a mouse and keyboard. I really think that gets to the heart of the issue. People, when they buy a console, want to be able to sit on their couch with their controller and enjoy the game and be competitive at the same time. I think that's an important note to make. Some people have made the argument, well, hey, if you want to rise through the ranks on console, well, then you should go out and buy your own mouse and keyboard. But that kind of defeats the purpose of playing on console. People want to be able just to enjoy the game on their couch. They don't want to have to be on a mouse and keyboard all day, hunched over a desk, especially at a long day at work. That doesn't mean that they don't want to do well in Rainbow Six Siege. That doesn't mean they don't want to try hard, but that's complete opposite of why they bought a console. Now, with all that being said, though, I'm not really sure what Ubisoft can do about all of this. I believe that Sony has their own official mouse and keyboard accessory that works for multiplayer games. If someone goes out and buys a Zim, which is an accessory that allows you to basically use a controller but with a mouse and keyboard, can Ubisoft even detect that? I will fully admit that I'm out of my wheelhouse on this one. I don't play a lot of competitive multiplayer games on console, but I do agree with you that this is an unfair advantage. And so let me know what you guys think should happen. Is this a big issue that Ubisoft should step on in and change? Is it really not that large of a problem and it only happens every once in a while? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. The next question comes from Quentin, and it is, how do you feel about the new ammo and health mechanics in Battlefield 5? I like that it makes an emphasis on team play, but as someone who likes to play recon, I'm worried I will end up trying to spend more time finding supplies than actually getting to play my role. You are definitely not the only one that has brought up this concern, and I think it's a valid one because this is a pretty big deviation compared to past Battlefield games. If you're not aware of what Quentin is talking about, basically when you spawn on in, you have very little ammo. To give you a good example of this, you can basically only reload fully once and then you're out. After that, you need to go find a support player or you need to go to one of the resupply stations. The reason why DICE is doing this is, like you stated in the question, to try to incentivize teamwork. And I think they have accomplished that to some extent. When I'm playing as a support player, I actually feel like my class is doing something more for the overall progress of my team. That said though, when you're not playing as a support class and it doesn't seem like anyone's dropping ammo anywhere around you, it can be a little frustrating to constantly go from the front lines to one of your supply stations. Like, it just kind of breaks the flow of the battle, which I know a lot of people haven't really been a fan of. Now, this could be in part because of a couple of reasons. First of all, I think a lot of people are straying away from the support class right now because when you compare their weapons compared to all of the other kits in the game, they feel a little lackluster. One of them literally requires you to basically be prone on the ground to use the bipod. Like, you have to do that if you want to be effective, which is a completely different playstyle. On top of that, I think a lot of people just need to get adjusted to this system. Many veterans aren't used to constantly having to drop their gadget every couple of seconds or every single time that they reload. Like, every single teammate around you could use one of your gadgets when you're playing as a support class. Like, it is seriously that valuable, but people just aren't accustomed to this kind of system, and so I think that might be another reason why we don't see enough of these things scattered around the map. And so hopefully, when the game comes out, not only will there just be a wider variety of weapons for the support class that are hopefully a bit more viable, but also people will get adjusted to these new mechanics, and it won't be in the state that it is in the alpha, where it just feels like you're always having to go to the supply stations. All that being said though, I would not be opposed to the idea if DICE gave everyone slightly more rounds to work with. If they were able to fully reload twice, I don't think that'd be the worst thing ever. They don't want to go to the extreme with it because they still want to make sure that the support class is viable and has a more important role compared to past Battlefield games, but I think that would be a nice quality of life improvements that would make it a little bit less frustrating. The next question comes from Kyle, and it is, do you think that Cafe needs a rework? There's only 2 defendable rooms. Well, admittedly, there are a lot of maps in Rainbow Six Siege that only have 2 competitive objectives, but I do agree with you that Cafe is probably one of the best examples. When you're playing on certain objectives, it can be nearly impossible on defense to feel like you have any chance of winning. But the same is also true for Oregon. You've got upstairs, you've got the basement, and that's about it. It may not be as severe as Cafe with their basements, but it is still a serious problem. You could even go look over at Chalet. Chalet has the garage and they have the kitchen. Yeah, you can try to be successful upstairs in the bedroom or in the bar area, but they're nowhere near as viable as those 2 other options. So this isn't just a unique problem with Cafe. It's a problem with a lot of the maps, but I still agree with you that Cafe is a great example and is one that I'm hoping gets a map buff in the very future. Pretty much the entire basement, I think, could be reworked. Right now, especially when you're playing on certain modes, it's basically just used as a way to get from one side of the map over to the other. you really do not want to select that basement section, because if you do, it's basically an automatic win for the offensive team. And so really, I think probably the best thing they could do is just move where the objectives are located. I don't understand why one of them needs to be directly next to that bakery section. Put it in the kitchen, put it in the freezer, so that offense can't just simply smoke it out, plant immediately, and then run outside, and then force defense to try to make their way to that front entrance, which of course just isn't going to happen. And so overall, I absolutely agree with you. Hopefully Ubisoft is going to do more than just move where the objectives are located. I would be surprised if that was the case, because I imagine they're going to do something very similar to like what they did with Clubhouse. They're going to move walls around. They're going to move the objectives around. They're going to be changing things up to try to make it more competitive. They've had 2.5+ years now to learn what Rainbow Six Siege is all about, learn from their mistakes, and improve upon them. And I think they did a phenomenal job with Clubhouse. The new Villa map with this philosophy, I think, is one of the better maps that we've gotten, especially for DLC. So if they're able to do something similar with Clubhouse on over into Cafe, I think that it's going to make for a much better experience. But of course, only time will tell. Yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Is there a certain map that you would like to see reworked? Would you like to see drone customization in Rainbow Six Siege? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for a future episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.